Gentlemen, we have exclusive information from an absolutely reliable source, which says that Diosdado Cabello's condition is very serious. So serious that he could die at any moment.
The Prime Minister, it is a proven fact that he forced, I say it like this, he has been pressuring the EU Court of Justice since his annual review appearance last December 15th. Claiming the Constitutional Court has already approved this is misleading since it's at the Prime Minister's beck and call. And now lobbying has been done to achieve this spurious ruling, right?
In the royal household, this is considered modern education, which is that children educate their parents. And that's very wrong. I mean, those parents are influenced by those two girls. They're very enthusiastic and all that, but you can see there's no discipline from the father, from the king in this case, from the queens. I mean, there's kind of a mix there where everyone in the family is the same, everyone is in charge, everyone. That's also a lethal message for young people and for education in general.
A democracy in which the branches of government are essentially independent. We must not allow politicians to contaminate any of the nation's institutions until we citizens recover what Valdez mentioned earlier, the concept of nationhood, because we tend to forget what the concept of nation really is. The nation is us, the citizens, free and equal. Because we are free and equal, we determine our own future.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.
Castillon, my insurance, sponsors the Castillon Confidential editorial. Thank you.
Welcome, how are you? Confidential, strength, honor, and let's move forward. Friends, all around the world, we are united with the same goal, the same thought, and the same word, freedom. We fight only for it and for its sake, each of us in our own work, from our personal independence and with our own ideology and way of thinking. This space is especially dedicated to those countries where socialism and communism still prevent human beings from being free, for example, Spain or Venezuela. In Venezuela, gentlemen, Delcy Rodriguez has blown a health issue out of proportion with these words.
As for my strained voice, yes, I have a very deep inner pain. My voice is strained because I have a health condition. I have witnesses here, both doctors and non-doctors. They've been telling me all day what I can't do.
Immediately after he started campaigning, which is what he always does, trying to get sympathy, which is what he likes, deep down, letting people know that she's sick is not a coincidence. Some people say that Delcy actually wants to leave the presidency to someone else under the supervision of the United States. She has already stolen enough. She has accounts in Switzerland. The United States has allowed her to take out whatever she wanted during these last few months. She has accounts in Dubai. Well, the excuse of, I'm on my last legs, I'm gonna die, let me go, might actually work for her. I hope that a democratic government in Venezuela will pursue her until the end of her days and put her in prison. If not, then the United States will. But while Delcy is playing her serious health card, the one who's actually in serious condition isn't saying anything. It's her number two, Diosdado Cabello. Gentlemen, we have exclusive information from an absolutely reliable source, which says that the health condition of Diosdado Cabello is very serious. So serious that he could die at any moment. The information comes to us directly from Venezuela and from Diosdado Cabello's inner circle. Diosdado Cabello is 63 years old. He's not very old. However, he has suffered for years from an arterial disease that has not been treated and that has gradually worsened his condition to its current state. According to what we've been told, he suffers from occlusive coronary artery disease. That is to say, severe arteriosclerosis that blocks two arteries, and much of a third artery is also blocked. His excesses, I mean excesses with food, fats, alcohol, and other substances, have led to his current health condition. He has never wanted to listen to the doctors or take medication. He starts taking the medication and then stops or abandons it. And even less so would he consider surgery, which is what the doctors have told him he should urgently do. Not now, but several years ago. This poor health condition that Diosdado Cabello has been dealing with has been getting alarmingly worse, to the point that nowadays he is forced to travel everywhere with a cardiologist. I repeat, Diosdado Cabello does not leave his house without being accompanied by a cardiologist. And what you're about to see, this machine is a special extracorporeal circulation device. We have consulted doctors to tell us what this is. It's very simple. It's a medical life support device that temporarily replaces the function of the heart and the lungs, diverting blood flow outside the body to oxygenate it, filter it, and return it to the body. This machine, along with the cardiologist, never leaves Diosdado Cabello's side when he leaves his home. He has already had scares before. He has already had brief cardiac arrests. If it happens again, if his heart stops, he would stay alive connected to this machine. He could even be operated on while connected to it. Our highly reliable sources tell us that Diosdado Cabello is keeping this serious health situation relatively secret. Only his closest personal family and political circle knows about it. He knows it. Delcy and Jorge Rodriguez know, but don't think he goes around telling people. He's not like Delcy Rodriguez, for now he would never do it in public. Diosdado Cabello's situation is serious, so much so that we're told he always sleeps with medical staff by his side at night to avoid scares he's already had. We're talking about seizures or brief cardiac arrests. That person by his side with medical equipment and that special extracorporeal circulation unit stays with him all night. And it's not easy because Diosdado Cabello is still afraid for his life and never sleeps in the same place twice. He still does it today in different places, for example, in the Cuban embassy or in the Spanish embassy or in the Chinese embassy, or in bunkers located in different places around Caracas. Therefore, that medical team and those doctors and that equipment follow him wherever he goes. Why hasn't he had surgery? The doctors ask him over and over again. They tell us that they have suggested several times to put in stents to dilate the arteries and keep them open. But he always says no. Why? Because he doesn't want to give up power, not even for a single day. Is he afraid, first of all, that they could end his life once he's under anesthesia? That one of his many enemies, including the Cartel of the Suns, might take advantage of that procedure to finish him off? And secondly, he doesn't trust leaving power for several weeks while he recovers and having a third person take over. Diostado's businesses. You already know what they are. Drug trafficking, gold trafficking, trafficking in money and people. And he's afraid that all of that could be destroyed by the United States if he leaves his position as the boss of that criminal organization. Don't forget that in recent days, several Republican congressmen have specifically asked Donald Trump to arrest and prosecute Diosdado Cabello, especially after seeing those images where he detains a group of U.S. rescuers and doesn't let them pass in La Guaira. It seems like Diosdado Cabello's days are numbered. Maybe it won't even be necessary to remove him or even arrest him. Maybe nature or the devil himself will take him to hell. We'll tell you about it here. Welcome, we're investigating.
The Mis Seguros app has sponsored Castillon Confidential's editorial. Download Mis Seguros, the easiest and fastest way to manage all your insurance in one place.
When you're riding an electric scooter, the last thing you want is to carry around papers. Your insurance, always at hand, digital, organized, and ready when you need it.
Subtitles, search Watkins Advertad.s library, subscribe.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.
Gentlemen, we do not hide the disappointment we all feel about the decision of the Court of Justice of the European Union. The amnesty law, they say, was intended to reduce tensions, not to end up in power. It does not affect cases involving terrorism, although several of those who were granted amnesty had terrorism charges. And they also say that public money hasn't been embezzled, when you and I both know that it has. There are like two worlds. One is the world we suffer through in Spain, especially those of us who are Catalan by birth, like me, and very Spanish as well. And then there's Europe. Europe, which is always patient, which sees Puigdemont as a member of the European Parliament with rights, which always looks on and turns a blind eye. Why does this happen? There is a man who has fought hard to prevent this from happening, although I believe the battle is not over yet. He is a lawyer, a consultant, and he has been traveling to Brussels, sending letters, meeting with high-ranking officials in Brussels, so that the decision would be different. It was another one. Mr. Amalio de Marichalar, how are you?
Very well, thank you very much.
And are you disappointed like I am?
Well, you put it very well. On one hand, a disappointment, but on the other hand, I have to say that as well. One, a shot in the arm to reaffirm our commitment to the values we believe must be defended and to justice, right? Accepting, as was only to be expected, the initial ruling we're hearing. Although it still needs to be thoroughly evaluated, obviously they have not considered the substance at all, nor the form. Why do I say this? Because we have been fighting for a very, very long time, indeed sending letters with all the necessary documentation to the European institutions during their presidencies and also to the Advocate General. Sorry, to the president of the CJEU, Mr. Linares, not addressing him directly. Precisely, Advocate General Spillman already announced something that is indeed the basis of the ruling we are seeing at this moment. No, which is that it is for the reconciliation of Catalonia. When that is not a legal argument, it's not true. Moreover, that reconciliation in Catalonia doesn't exist. It's becoming more and more divided. I am in constant contact with many associations. By the way, the ones that organize the National Day of Spain and Dia de la Hispanidad, they bring out hundreds of thousands of people and they're not considered at all. They're trampled under the boots of the Generalitat. No, then it's a complete lie. It's a false narrative from the Prime Minister. Curiously, the Advocate General Spillman uses the same words about reconciliation in Catalonia. When the Prime Minister said that it wasn't constitutional and that it wasn't, as we know, part of the Spanish legal system, before the elections on the 23rd and shortly after, seeing that he could now count on 7 votes, arithmetically speaking, and so he said it was. Because you have to make a virtue out of necessity, whatever legal argument they use, that's self-incrimination for whoever sees it that way. Whoever says you have to make a virtue out of necessity is admitting it implicitly and explicitly. Y explícitamente, to anyone who wants to listen, that they do it exclusively for that reason, which is just like the European Commission report told us, right? And the Venice Commission itself, saying that it was a self-amnesty in exchange for 7 votes to make himself prime minister.
So, but let's see if we can explain it to the citizens, Mr. Amalio, because either they don't get it or they're receiving favors in exchange, or there are manipulations and lobbies that we don't know about.
Well, I think, let's see, the prime minister, that's a proven fact. He pressures, I'll say it like this, he pressures the CJEU since last December 15th in his annual review appearance, making it seem like this is already done, that the Constitutional Court has already approved it. That doesn't have any merit because it's at the beck and call of the Prime Minister and the European Commission. The Venice Commission report supports him when it's a lie, as we just explained. And what if he says they've joined in? Also, the Advocate General, who, as I said, imitates the political argument rather than the legal one. And from that moment on, he lets the national and international media know that he has won the ruling. And we know that the President of the Constitutional Court himself has been traveling to several countries. And we know, although I can't specify right now, that he wanted to visit the president or the CJEU or members of the CJEU, and everything is in the form of a statement. President of the Constitutional Court. And we also know that he has worked externally, he has lobbied to achieve this spurious ruling. No, we know that for sure, and we've also said it publicly, and no one has ever refuted us. So, on the other hand, what's concerning is that we've written so many times with all the legal documentation. When I've been able to be there, they've told me I was completely right. I've asked if there was anything missing in legal to complete it, and they've told me no, that it's a complete dossier. I've appeared before the European Commission, before the Committee on Petitions, everything impeccable. The legal dossier, on the other hand, is being handled by the Spanish legal world by an overwhelming majority, right? It concluded 2.5 years ago against the amnesty law. So they have all the strong legal arguments, as I believe has never been achieved before, to bring together a legal critique that is absolutely fair and absolutely just. They have everything in their hands, but excuse me, they don't respond. That's where I wanted to finish. They don't answer the letters. And that's one of the very serious problems, because it's explained to them clearly. The framework, the environment in which all this has happened, which is what matters in order to judge it and understand why, the framework, the context in which we operate. They haven't wanted to evaluate it.
It's as if it had already been decided and the pressure from the Sanchez government had provided the final push. Do you think there was some kind of agreement, some pact in exchange for something?
Well, that's very hard for me to say, very hard to see. But indeed, there are two very delicate aspects here, Alberto. Let's see. One, that indeed behind the scenes, because they also made deals with Puigdemont, the leader of that party that has blood on its electoral lists, dark pacts. The ones we know about have gradually come to light, and the ones we don't know about yet. The fact that he made this deal so that Puigdemont would give him legitimacy again, let's say, extended day by day, dictating the government's agenda. And that in Europe he becomes legitimate again. A person who is corrupt to the core regains even a minimal degree of legitimacy. And maybe that's what Europe needs, since Spain is obviously an important nation. That the European Prime Minister, the Spanish one, in this case, who is pointed out by all international media as corrupt and as someone who attacks judicial independence and the rule of law. Every day he needs to be propped up. Is that the impression you get? And another thing, there is a very serious issue, and that is, and we have been warning about it in successive letters over and over again, if this were to happen, as unfortunately it has happened, it creates a framework, a body of case law, a path by which any new European Prime Minister will be able to come to power, illegitimately, corruptly, illegally, fraudulently. And in this way, be careful with this matter, because Europe has gotten itself into a big mess. It's gotten itself into a huge problem. Because what if any new prime minister is protected? With this ruling, anyone can come to power by any illegitimate and absolutely unlawful means and still legitimize themselves in power.
It's true that never before, like these days, has he needed Puigdemont's 7 votes so much to stay in power. He loses every vote in Congress. We're sure that now he'll start getting them, even if Puigdemont doesn't come back immediately, since that depends on the Supreme Court. But I don't know if you feel the same way I do. Whether Puigdemont comes back or not, I don't really care anymore. The serious thing is the attack on the rule of law, right? They destroyed the Catalan Statute of Autonomy, They got rid of all the laws in this country. They used acts of terrorism. And now they're telling us that everything was fine. They're giving a huge boost to people like Junqueras, Bildu, and all the rest, right?
That's right, and even to Illa himself, if I may say so, who represents soft separatism, but everything is absolutely agreed upon with the coup plotters. Because he, in addition, can be in that position thanks to some of those parties that carried out the coup.
Yes, but this shows, Mr. Amalio, that we can't trust Europe to maintain democracy in Spain. If you allow me, the leader of the opposition, the Popular Party, isn't stepping up. Europe looks the other way. What do we have left?
Well, you see, Albert, I have asked the leader of the opposition, I have asked him several times, the last time was 4 days ago, precisely to inform him about the March for Dignity in Marbella. I have asked him, since he has the authority to call President von der Leyen or President Metsola or President Costa, right? To have a coffee, even if it's informal, with the European flag behind, and during the conversation, if he wants to raise it, to do so very gently. Ideally, he would ask President von der Leyen for a public statement, but if he wants to do it gently, in a way that makes it clear that von der Leyen says this is unacceptable, that the attack on the rule of law, on the state of law, which is the foundation for their existence. By the way, the European institutions, thanks to them, are supposed to defend the rule of law and all citizens, the dignity of all citizens. This becomes a European indignity. What is left? The institutions themselves, even if they look back, it comes back to them like a boomerang, but why do they exist? They exist to defend, and it's in the Treaty of the Union, the European Constitution, all the foundations, it's to strictly defend the rule of law. How is it possible? The opposition leader can, within hours, ask President von der Leyen to publicly state that the Spanish government president is directly attacking the rule of law. How is that possible? A president involved in corruption cannot meet the minimum European standards of political ethics, and that directly affects the credibility of the president herself, of the rest of the institutions, and of everything that the head of democracy represents. The opposition has the obligation as our leader to immediately, in the next few hours, call on President von der Leyen. And by the way, there are no excuses, since around this time last year, President von der Leyen, with the European flag behind her, very institutional, I won't go into evaluating that. She called out the Hungarian Prime Minister, telling him to allow and not prohibit the LGBT weekend in Budapest. Very well. So how is it possible then that the President of the European Commission does not come out to defend the rule of law, without which there can be no LGBT demonstration? Or any other kind, whatever it may be, sports or, I don't know, ecological or any kind at all. There are no excuses, Albert, at this moment for the leader of the opposition to ask President von der Leyen, I'm saying it here on your show publicly, a formal statement denouncing a prime minister who is the disgrace of Europe. And if you didn't believe it, all the media around the world are pointing it out every day.
If we see von der Leyen doing that, I'll invite you to dinner.
Well, I hope so. I really hope we have that dinner, but I assure you one thing, we're going to keep insisting every day. All of this gives us even more motivation. And I, without a doubt, make a pact with all Spaniards. We have to put our optimism into action, our goodwill, our embrace to all Spaniards. The Prime Minister wants to break that, and we have to find strength in adversity with hope, with determination, just like the Spanish national team has done. We Spaniards are living through a May 2nd of the 21st century. We cannot allow a Prime Minister unworthy of the Spanish citizens and the rest of Europe to remain in office for one more second. It's impossible to maintain the dignity and decency of everyone.
We are with you. Stay strong, and you have your platform here whenever you want, Mr. Amalio de Marichalar. Marichalar, a hug. Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.
I lost my job, and I could only rely on credit cards and loans to get by until I lost my house, I lost my family, and even then I still couldn't get rid of my debts.
If you are in a situation of insolvency, contact us and we will tell you if you meet the requirements of the second chance law. Sin Deuda Group, your second chance.
Welcome to the world of Vichy Catalan, where authenticity and health go hand in hand. Here we know how to enjoy ourselves and also how to take care of ourselves. A place to make every moment unique and savor it intensely. We are waiting for you at the House of Sparkling Water, Vichy Catalan.
Friends, I know that this weekend politics takes a bit of a back seat, at least in Argentina and Spain. I'm aware that you're focused on something else, I understand. And actually, it's even good. It's therapeutic. Someone sent me a meme, I don't remember who, Guille, tell me, that shows a picture of Rajoy. And it says, in the Argentine national team, there isn't a single Argentine playing. They're all grandchildren of Spaniards. Oh, my dear Rancaño, my dear Zoe Valdez, how are you both? Very well, very well. It's an honor to be here. An honor. The honor is mine to have you both. Sports are also politics now. Man, yes, they are. Yes, they are. And besides, grandchildren of Spaniards, right? A friend of mine named Maria sent me this.
I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if they're grandchildren, but I'm sure a big part of the Argentine team are descendants of Spaniards.
Obviously.
I'm completely sure of that.
Man, there's a photograph. Yes, there's a photograph of Messi in a charity calendar he did when he was a kid, and he's holding a little black baby in his arms. Very cute, very chubby. Well, years later, in 2024, Yamil Lamal's father recognized that it was his son. That is, Messi held in his arms the other great player who is now facing him on Sunday in the final, right? It's one of life's coincidences, but it's as if the world spins around wildly and ends up doing crazy things like this. Look at what Danny says to you, Rancaño.
This is for Rancaño, who said that the World Cup's football is just bread and circuses. Yes, for now it's bread and circuses, but soon it's only going to be circuses because they're going to take away our bread.
And it's true, isn't it?
Absolutely true. It's bread and circuses because the Romans already invented it. And soon it's going to be all circus. All right, Albert, let's enjoy. We'll watch the match on Saturday. I hope the Spanish team wins.
On Sunday?
On Sunday. You're not really into soccer, are you?
Let's hope we have a good day, that we can enjoy it, but let's keep the important things in perspective.
Yes, sir. Because we'll come back here and we'll keep waiting and pushing. Things are changing in Spain. I hope that in Cuba too. I have the latest message from Marco Rubio. Dear Zoe, I want you to listen to it.
Their economic model doesn't work. It's broken. It can't be fixed with the current political system. They don't know how to do it. It's a failed state. There are other ways to provide Cuba with prosperity and opportunities. Cuba is surrounded by countries where people can do business. The president's preference is always to reach a peace agreement.
Dissociated agreement, that's peaceful. That's always our preference. After saying this, CBS leaked that they are at the Pentagon considering the rapid deployment of the Army's 101st Airborne Division. But I don't know if I should believe it now, Zoe. I'm asking you to enlighten me.
Well, I'm more or less in the same situation as you, although a bit closer. I think Marco Rubio has said all this many times already. It's no longer the time for sanctions or more sanctions. What they're doing is allowing the people in the Castro regime to buy time. And then all this talk, the only thing it does is discourage the Cuban people who have been very enthusiastic about the idea that finally there will be a surgical, humanitarian, military intervention, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is. At this point, there's no room for squeamishness, kid gloves, or anything like that. We have to do it now because children are dying in large numbers, because there's a tragedy that not even the UN, I've talked so much about Cuba at the UN for other children. Remember that speech by Fidel Castro that I later parodied about how no child in the world should be without a piece of bread, a bumper for, well, now that's the case in Cuba now, not just a while ago. So I want to know where UNICEF is. Where is UNICEF Cuba, which made a report that was published in Spain saying that the happiest children were Cuban children? Well, no, that's not true. We have to tell UNICEF to do its job, which is to defend children also in Cuba, because what's going on? That Cuban children, no matter what color they are not important. The lives of Cuban children don't matter. What's the problem here? And so I think Marco Rubio needs to know, just like Donald Trump, as I already wrote to you in an article that was published in Diario de las Americas, that from a certain moment on, the deaths that occur in Cuba are not only the responsibility of the Castro regime, but also of those who put the Castro regime in power, that is the United States government, and of those who right now have the possibility to free us from that regime, just as they put it there, because they can remove them, and yet they go around with these tricks, right? With these mannerisms, right? It's no longer the time for mannerisms. It's over.
You posted a photo of a boy named Jordy carrying, as the viewers of the show can see, carrying a bag of cans at midnight, trying to make a few cents, survive, and bring something home. Well, this is the reality. I was a bit...
But I also posted, sorry to interrupt you, I also posted the video of a children's hospital. Total darkness, complete darkness, the children crying, and the mothers desperate because the children are dying in hospitals that have no electricity. Please, that too, and that's unforgivable that the world, which talks so much about Africa, no, Africa is now in Cuba. Africa is in Cuba now.
Yes, ma'am. How important. So UNICEF published a report saying that the happiest children in the world were in Cuba. Do you promise me? Are you serious?
Yes, it was published in Spain. It was UNICEF Cuba together with UNICEF Spain. They published a report about 2 or 3 years ago where the happiest children in the whole world, the whole wide world, were Cuban children.
What, please? Watch the video I was referring to, and I'm coming to you, Rancaño. Watch this video. There's enough here to make one of your documentaries. Children's hospital without electricity, while in the mansions of the Castro elite, they have all the luxuries: light, electricity, hot water, and food.
But it's incredible that the children's hospital doesn't have power. They don't have a generator. They don't have absolutely anything to take care of the children. It's crazy.
When Pablo Iglesias went to the hotel, there were a lot of lights. Do you remember, Rancaño?
Yes, I remember. But Zoe Valdez is absolutely right. Words don't matter anymore. I'm completely fed up with words. The only solution, the only possible solution, is a military intervention by the United States of America and a direct military intervention. I don't care if the intervention is carried out or just a threat of intervention and the regime abandons the structures of power and is replaced by men or people appointed by the American government. There is no other possible alternative at this time. And I would like to remind you that great nations have great responsibilities. And if the United States wants to regain the greatness of its nation, which it is thanks to its Constitution. And it is because of what they have done throughout their short history. They must not forget the ideals for which they were founded. The United States of America stood for freedom and God. And for freedom, they should intervene in Cuba. And they should also do it for God. Because Cuba is going through hell. Evil has taken hold in Cuba. The Cuban population is living through hell on earth. There's no need to say anything else. And I would remind the American leaders, I don't say that to the Europeans because I have completely lost faith and trust in Europe. Europe has disappeared. And if we have time later, I would like to, talk a little bit about this with the European leaders.
Yes, but I understand that you say this after learning just a few hours ago about the amnesty law. Do you believe that Sanchez did it to reconcile the Catalans? Not to gain the position in Moncloa. No. Because he's such a good person that he did it to reconcile. Exactly.
This is one more reason why I believe that Europe has disappeared, has lost, doesn't exist, is being held hostage, or is irrelevant, or whatever the current European leaders think. I absolutely don't care. I ask the American administration, I ask the Republican Party, which is the party that has a more determined position on this issue, and some of the leaders of the Republican Party, please don't wait, intervene militarily. History will thank you, and of course, the Cuban people will thank you forever.
Gentlemen, there is a lot of filth in Spanish corruption, and I want to tell you about it because it's the only way to clean up the underworld that in Spain is in the hands of the government and those in power. Look, Mercedes Gonzalez, director of the Civil Guard, is testifying today because yesterday the statement before the judge by Manuel Llamas, the DAO, was extended. He lied. He said that he never told his people to stand aside in the investigations involving the Sanchez family. He lied because several people have said that he did say it, and he confessed something else to the judge, that Marlaska called him to ask about the appearance of an email from Begoña Gomez in a UCO report. Or this goes to the lowest level. I think the best proof of how far we've come was obtained yesterday by ABC with this audio. Let's listen to it again, because it's already part of Spain's history. Luis Antonio del Castillo. Remember the name because he's a sellout to the Director General of the Civil Guard. He's a former Lieutenant General of the Civil Guard's Operations Command. The hero here is Fernando Mora, Major General, head of the Community of Madrid area. He retired a year ago. He tells him that by order of Marlaska, he shouldn't attend the May 2nd events of the Community of Madrid. Why? Because it's Ayuso and they can't stand her. And that's when the general says that fine, he won't go, but he's going to report it. He's going to make it public. Listen, tell me, listen.
Nothing, my general. Look, I've thought it through carefully, and I believe that honor is our motto. And I must think about my principles, about the fact that what you're ordering me to do, I will carry out, because it's an order. But I think I must let you know that I cannot agree with this decision. I understand that we're being used and that the Civil Guard has to be impartial. This is a political battle, and we shouldn't get involved. And I believe...
Yes, I remember the thing about orders was that when you received an order that wasn't manifestly illegal, you followed it.
No.
No, you couldn't, my general.
It's just that I've already told you and the trust.
The fact that you have to tell the community of Madrid that you can't go because you've been ordered not to seems almost disloyal to me.
Man, well, it may be disloyal, but I have to justify that it's my duty, and I know it's my duty to go to that event. I am the institutional representative of the Civil Guard in the Community of Madrid. I am invited by the President of the Community of Madrid. She's not inviting just anyone. It's a highly important event that I believe no regional chief general, no command chief colonel can ignore. And at a certain point, when it's time to respond, I'm going to say, I would go, but they won't let me go. I'm not going to get into controversies. I'm not going to say the minister told me. No, I'm simply going to answer.
The controversy is generated by...
No, but the controversy is generated by whoever wants it. Not me, General. I'm just following an order and explaining why I'm not going to the authority that invited me. That authority needs an answer. I could say I'm not going because my daughter is in labor.
No, you don't have to say that.
No, General. I think it's basic courtesy, protocol, and common sense to say what you have to say. In this case, even more so, because in this case, I feel used. I believe that the institution I represent, not Fernando Mora, because in this case, Fernando Mora is not involved, the one that's involved here is the Civil Guard institution. I have a sign on the door that says honor is their motto. That's what I demand from my guards. And I believe that matches my principles.
Whatever you say, I'm going to tell the director the two options, and that's fine.
Well, that's it. And now let's see. I'm going to follow the order. I mean, you told me that you were ordering me to do this. You told me it was coming from the ministry, that the minister has given the instruction, that the director is in the middle. Well, then I'm going to follow the order, but I feel obligated as a matter of principle to say it the way I have to say it, That's the thing.
I totally disagree. I mean, but I'm telling you honestly.
Yes, look at me. I mean it.
The conversation lasts several minutes. There is a moment when the Major General explodes and says, "I'm not going through here, listen."
Right now, I have to justify myself in front of the president of the community to whom I owe.
I've been zone chief for 3 years. That works for me. And head of a command for 5 years. And I know that if you excuse yourself from one of these events, well, it's no big deal if you don't go.
Damn it, and this decision that the ministry is making, why are they making it? For a political reason? Excuse me, let me finish. They're doing it as a gesture. It's a gesture of contempt toward the community of Madrid, toward the president of the community of Madrid, and they're using me for that gesture of contempt. They're kicking the regional president by kicking me in the ass.
In the end, they almost threaten him with being kicked out.
Listen, I accept it, and since I don't accept it, I'm going home.
I don't have to leave. If you want to kick me out, then kick me out.
General, if you don't accept it, you go home. A year later, this man graduated with honors, as you can see, and Luis Antonio del Castillo, Lieutenant General of the Civil Guard Operations Command. In other words, the brown-noser who told him to follow Marlaska's political orders and fought to make sure he did is still in his position. But for me, this is very important because it shows that there are honest people. Rancaño. Prosecutor Lastra was fired for not defending the Attorney General Perez de los Cobos. The list keeps getting longer, and we need to hold these people up as an example so that others find the courage, don't you think?
I agree with what you're saying, Albert. The general's behavior is honorable. I would have reminded the general that orders are either legal or illegal. There's no such thing as manifestly legal or manifestly illegal. Orders are either legal or illegal. Exactly. I think he had grounds to disobey the order because it was illegal. The lieutenant general who relays the order has no dignity. To wear the civil guard uniform, what he's actually doing is staining the civil guard uniform because he's not a civil guard officer. He's a politician who, by the way, takes orders from some very bad politicians. But what does it reflect? What this situation reflects, Albert, is the takeover of the institutions. In this 78 regime, all the institutions have been robbed, taken by force, hijacked. I don't care what term we use for it. In this case, the political power of the left, they have taken over all the institutions without exception. What happens? The behavior of generals or people like the general we've heard is not the norm, Albert. They are exceptions in our country. This is not the norm. In most cases, a civil guard officer would have obeyed the order without complaint. Look, the other day I wrote something on my social media that said if we don't put an end to this 78 regime, the regime is going to put an end to us. Yes, I've been listening to you closely these past few days about your assessment of the justice system or the court's ruling on Sanchez's brother. And it's one of the few times you see when I really disagree with many of the opinions that have been given. Because to me, it seems like one of the most disgraceful acts that have occurred in the history of Spanish democracy. When justice is just an appearance, it is disgraceful and unjust by nature and by definition. The judges didn't issue a ruling. They made a political decision to appease the left and thinking it would be enough to satisfy the right. And it's yet another reflection of what happens in this country. As I've often explained, why do cultural programs only hire left-wing comedians, left-wing commentators? Because they're afraid of them, they're afraid. And it's no surprise the current backlash against justice by the government and all its henchmen. They're clapping.
Apparently, they criticize it, but deep down they say we still have a firm grip on power because they're afraid of us. But there are many heroes, many more than we can count here. Juan Francisco Cucharero, a source, listens to our program and tells me the story of his father. I asked him to send me a voice message so we can talk to him. He says he hopes to do it in the coming days. My dad was a colonel in the army and director of armaments when Jose Bono was Minister of Defense, that is, when Zapatero was president. They had to test new bulletproof vests that were coming from El Corte Inglés. Well, he got a team together, they tested them, and they weren't good. The superior officer told them that couldn't be, that they should test the ones that were supposed to work again. They sent another batch of bulletproof vests. They were the same and they still weren't good. So in short, he told him to discipline the ones who wrote the report. Juan Francisco's father refused and immediately requested transfer to reserve status. This man, this army colonel now in reserve status, is named Francisco Cucharero Perez. He is well known in the world of weaponry and the army, and he should be honored as another hero because there are many like him who must be seen. With his career finished, and earning much less and still not old enough to retire, it's not easy to take that step. That's the dignified thing to do. But it's very difficult because then you have to pay bills. You know what I mean? No.
Exactly. Look, I agree with what she said. She started. I absolutely agree with everything, but remember the experience of what has happened in Cuba with the generals who on many occasions have been executed. I think this is a plan that the left always has, which is to dismantle the military, and to defame their honor because they are attacking their honor, and that's taking away an important part of the nation's soul. Look, yesterday Emmanuel Macron said something that I answered in Spanish and in French. He said that patriotism, yes, but nation?
Never.
Well, the thing is that patriotism is the nation. So when in 2017, because of problems like the ones we're talking about here now, which are happening in Spain and have been happening for a while, they took away the funds, a large amount of funds. I think it was 850 million. And if I'm not mistaken, General Pierre de Villiers and the whole scandal breaks out and they try to remove him. And Macron and this man leaves saying, no, I can't accept this. You're taking away the soul and honor of the nation. And this is what they're trying to do. And what does Arancaño say about the laws mattering and not mattering? And a military man of that stature, with that kind of honor, has every right to say, I will not comply with this. This doesn't make sense because they're breaking the nation's spirit. And that is patriotism. The leftists or the center left or whatever you want to call them always try to break apart and dismantle what is united. If patriotism and the nation go together, well, let's separate them and say that patriotism is one thing and the nation is another. To take away the honor of these people. Who are the defenders of all that? The defenders of the homeland, the defenders of the nation?
The defense. And also, if you notice how tragic, how terrible, Zoe. Some decisions are cowardly, like the one the judges made in the brothers' case, and they completely delegitimize the democratic system. The message being sent is lethal, truly lethal. Look, I was getting calls not just from my children, but also from my children's friends. They would tell me, and why the hell do we have to follow the laws? And why shouldn't we steal? Why do we have to behave decently and we have to work and we have to empathize with our fellow countrymen? The message that's being sent, that's being repeated to the public is lethal, lethal, absolutely lethal. That's why I say these decisions are crucial. They carry more weight than people think. And cowards sometimes are more wicked than the wicked themselves. When I see on your show people I respect with whom I share many opinions, but I didn't know what there was to celebrate about the verdict. What was there to celebrate? That it recognized the work of the private prosecution. If that's not what this is about, and the private prosecution is just doing its job, what exactly was there to celebrate? Because I don't know. I really don't.
Are you referring to Javier Maria Perez Roldan, lawyer from Asturias?
The entire opposition, they were thrilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he says it, and it's another perspective, and I agree with you. Since the prosecution doesn't exist, and he's a defense attorney, and as for the state attorney's office, it doesn't exist either. It's the PSOE's attorney. If it weren't for that handful of people without a penny who asked for donations to pay for travel fees and expenses, he wouldn't even have been sentenced to 9 years of disqualification. Yeah.
But Albert, I think that wasn't the message. The message should have been, we're going to appeal this sentence because this sentence, they'll see it. But because it's a scandal because it offends the majority of Spaniards.
I understand.
Because it's clearly a clear sign that there isn't equal justice for all Spaniards, that it's been a kind of political concoction, Alberto.
But we've already seen this before. Hey, they've released the people from the ERE case who stole 700 million. The attorney general goes on and is still attorney general, but he committed a crime. Of course, you don't know. It existed just the same.
But those who are never abandoned, those who don't leave the party, who end up in prison, abandoned, those whom the party discards, to those who were later abandoned by the Popular Party, to those who were abandoned by the Socialist Party. But the elite who remain tied or linked to the party always get different treatment. That's why I'm telling you, Albert, there was nothing to celebrate, absolutely nothing to celebrate.
Well, just to be clear, are the private prosecutors going to appeal David Sanchez's sentence so that he returns the 340,000 euros he received? Let it be clear, and let it be clear that many people, including Carlos from Quebec, tell me there's a hashtag called the favored brother must return what was stolen. The big brother must return what was stolen. Spread this hashtag, help us, because this also gets things moving. And one more thing, we can now announce the March for Dignity in Marbella. Sunday, July 26th, 8 p.m. I already know. On a Sunday at 8 in the evening, a lot of people won't be able to go, but at any other time, the venues are full, the beach is full. We're talking about Marbella. If it's close to you, if you want to be around there, if you're on vacation, there are a lot of people on vacation. We have to support this march. We'll have guests next week, July 26th, 8 in the evening, March for Dignity. And this message was also shared. If there are cities in Spain that want to organize a March for Dignity, Spanish civil society supports them. I'll put you in touch with guests like Amalio de Marichalar, who was just with us, and others like Marcos de Quinta. And we join together to organize more marches across Spain because dignity in Spain is at rock bottom. I don't need to tell you, Begoña Gomez got her passport back, say no more. The provincial court has told Penado that yes, she will be tried by a jury. They dropped 2 charges against her, business corruption and embezzlement, but kept 2 others, information trafficking, influence peddling and embezzlement, but they have returned her passport and already lifted the precautionary measures. I feel sorry because it shows once again that we are not all equal before the law. This furious attack by Sanchez on the judges because now he's criticizing the provincial court. He doesn't care. This is basic dictator stuff, isn't it?
This is basic dictator stuff. This is what he learned from the instructions he went to get in Cuba on his first trip. Is he doing it exactly as they told him to do it? That's how it'll be until the end. And he's not going to leave. And she's going to get her way because on top of that, she's extremely dangerous. She's always in the shadows, and she is. One of the dangers, what I do believe, what you just said, we have to support all the marches, and we Spaniards can't stop taking to the streets. Not me, I won't be there at that moment, but as soon as I come back, for every march there is, even if I have to pay for plane tickets, whatever it takes, I'll be there. We can't stop taking to the streets because these people aren't going anywhere. And if they don't go, we can't stop taking to the streets. Isn't this what a dictator does already? He is a dictator, not just now, he has been for a while. And Spain is a dictatorship, but of course that's obvious and it will get worse. Unfortunately, things will get worse.
And you know, seeing what has happened lately, maybe out of naivety or enthusiasm, we've given the wrong impression. Exactly. We've given the impression that the European and Spanish justice system was an independent justice system, and it's not. We can't accuse the regime, as we do, of being corrupt, of having hijacked and taken over all the institutions, and then just leave it at that. Leaving the judicial system out of it is a mistake because it's not true, because we see it every day when we see. You mentioned today the ruling of the European Court, which is a real disgrace. Well, you can't even call that a European court. That's a political court. And now it's a ruling handed down under the orders of the bureaucrats in Brussels. Until we become aware that corruption permeates the entire system, and when I say the entire system, I mean everything. This doesn't mean, as you've said, there aren't brave judges. There are, just as there are brave police, soldiers, citizens, and journalists. But in my view, they're the exception. And above all, those judges who are in a position of greater power than the ordinary judges in towns and cities, until we become aware that we need to recover a militant, active democracy, a democracy in which the branches of power are essentially independent, that we do not allow politicians to contaminate any of the nation's institutions until the citizens recover what was mentioned before. Perhaps the concept of nation, because we forget what the concept of nation is, the nation itself. We are the free and equal citizens, and because we are free and equal, we determine our own future. We have to recover that militant concept of democracy. And look, it's me. I'm 59 years old, and I was telling my wife, what a shame, honey, that I'm not 25 years old or younger. For the energy, not for any other reason. I mean, because I would have enough strength, because I think we have to take a step forward. We have to do it in a determined way. We have to start looking for more creative, much more combative solutions. Civil society has to start thinking about this in a different way, because if we don't do it, the impunity with which they operate will continue to give them wings. And they will keep adopting totalitarian stances and positions like the ones we are seeing these days, like the kind of control we've been seeing in Europe lately, like ChatGPT control over. But anyway, they make decisions regardless of the citizens' opinions, and we have to start recovering that concept of militant and active democracy.
Well, anyone in Spain makes the same comment you're making, they say. If what is happening with Sanchez were happening with the PP, how would the streets be? How would UGT and the unions react? General strikes, stoppages, well, daily demonstrations. Look, as of today, it's not known if Sanchez is going to the World Cup final. And that's already strange in itself. Yes, in the last few hours, since it was known that we were going to the final with Argentina, the Prime Minister's office dodged the issue, just like the Civil Guard's Deputy Operations Director. And he said, we don't know the schedule. That's a lie. There's nothing on the schedule. It's a political ploy. And now in the last few hours, they keep lying, saying they're trying to make room to find a solution. Well, what's wrong with Sanchez? I'm going to tell you because we've had communication and information from people close to him, from members of the security forces who aren't far from him. And that makes a lot of things easier. I'll tell you in just a minute. About Sanchez and the World Cup, what do Jose Antonio, Isabel, Francisco, and Miguel think?
I have a feeling we won't be able to enjoy our leader's presence at the final, next to Trump nor to Milei with the respective wives of the others. But anyway, my proposal is that in the stadium and in those places with giant screens, we take advantage of those hydration breaks to sing some traditional Spanish song.
You were saying that Sanchez hasn't gone to any of Spain's matches, and I ask God that he doesn't go. Please don't let him go. Don't let him go. May he not jinx us. God forbid, we don't want him to go.
I have a wish for the final, that they remember our president for how well he has done, for how he unites us, for how he looks out for Spain, for what he is, for the citizens here in Spain. I would like them to remember him.
How is Ceylon going to go to the World Cup final? They're going to sing the summer song to him, and he's going to see himself reflected in front of everyone. He knows he can't go, so it's better if he doesn't go.
Gentlemen, as I told you, we've consulted with someone from the president's security team. I won't say more, to see whether there might be problems about whether he plans to go or not. And why isn't he going? Because a lot of people have been speculating. Some were saying that since it's in New York, maybe Donald Trump will have him arrested. I mean, man, if only we were that lucky.
I wish.
But I don't know. That's not the case. No, that's not the case. And what they tell me, I pass on to you. They tell me Sanchez is not going to go. I don't know. From now until Sunday, he might change his mind, but they tell me he's not going because he's terribly afraid of this. Son of a bitch. In fact, they give me more information about this. The United States investigated whether, under current laws in the United States and New York, they could somehow prevent them from shouting. Pedro Sanchez, me gusta la fruta. And no, it couldn't be prevented. Freedom of speech there is even greater than in Spain. And they also let him know, because it seems someone asked about it. I need to find out who. Who thought of asking that? Was it to FIFA or whoever it was, right? And since they're going to shout it if he comes close to the stands, and he won't be able to avoid it. And this time it's not just the people in Spain who find out. No, the whole world will know. The entire world. Because that's an international spotlight. That's the reason why he's not going. Well, it makes sense to me, knowing you're a journalist. The power that Shout has worldwide is nothing like when people shouted at him here on the street.
No, of course. And besides, he's afraid of the truth. He knows he's a liar, that he's a real fraud. And that's what he's afraid of. He's scared he's a real fraud. He's afraid of the truth, which is shouted at him every time he goes outside. And now, like you said, at that level, well, it's obvious worldwide, internationally, and he won't be able to handle it because he's afraid. He's an egomaniac, he's a psychopath, and like all egomaniac psychopaths, well, he's going to react in a way that he won't even realize all those faces he makes. Look, every time he's in a difficult situation, he's always making faces, his eyes get completely out of sync. It's like Jean-Paul Sartre, one eye on being and the other on nothingness, like it said in the parenthesis before. It's Guillermo Carrera Infante. He's a guy who's cornered by his own doing. He's his own tormentor, like Terence.
Right? He's Dorian Gray, Zoe. He's our Dorian Gray, our own particular Dorian Gray case.
Exactly, yes.
But what an indignity it is to have a final and the prime minister isn't there, because he can't stop people from saying what they think about him.
Given the stature of the person who represents us, I think our football players, all of them, and our coach are the best possible representation of the Spanish people in the final. The best possible representation of the Spanish people in the final.
Better than the king, right? I agree.
Yes.
Expressed myself
as clearly as I wanted to. I said that it is the best possible representation of our nation. It's embodied by the players and our coach. And I'd like to point out here that they've shown exemplary behavior. They haven't generated tension, they haven't generated hatred, and they've been able to do what all their compatriots want, which is to unite, be together, progress together, help each other, behave like a nation. What was it that Valdez was saying earlier? We are perfectly represented. We don't need anyone.
I agree. Angeles and Virginia talk about the royals who will go to the World Cup, at least the king.
I think it's great that the royal family celebrates it, just not in such a tacky and casual way. A head of state should be surrounded not by pomp exactly, but in this case by magnificence.
When I saw those images on social media, I was shocked. Today would be a good day to challenge our dear queen, who already knows that the protocol is set. She knows so much. Let's see if she dares on Sunday to wear the Spanish flag, her and her 2 little daughters.
Just like they did with the French flag. Did you see it, Zoe, the image of the French flag on the dresses? The same day Spain plays against France in the World Cup, on France's National Day, they put on their little show. We've never seen that with the Spanish flag. Zoe, what's wrong with them?
I don't know what's wrong with them, but what I do know, and I'm going to make this very clear, is that I believe there's a kind of infiltration in the royal family about what is believed to be education nowadays, which is that children educate their parents, and that's very wrong. I mean, those parents are influenced by those 2 girls who are very enthusiastic and all that, but you can see there's no discipline from the father, in this case, the king or the queen. I mean, there's kind of a mix there where everyone in the family is the same, everyone gives orders, everyone. That's also a lethal message for young people and for education in general. But, well, that's the message they want. I'm not going to criticize the king. I have a great deal of respect for the King of Spain, and that's my position. But of course, I have to make an observation, and that observation is extremely important to me, not just for that royal family, but for Spain. That's not the kind of education we should keep imposing on the family, because in my opinion, it's not the right one.
Can we say, Zoe, Albert, that they have sympathy for France? After all, they are Bourbons. I understand that they have a natural familial sympathy for France because they are Bourbons. But I would like to remind Her Majesty and the whole troop that accompanies her that possibly the worst period in the history of Spain, that is our greatest crisis, was under Napoleon's invasion, which for Spain practically meant the destruction of our cultural heritage and our economic heritage. It's not mentioned because it seems it's not politically correct. But a large part of the historical setback that Spain takes years, I would say decades, to recover from is a consequence of the Bonaparte episode, the French Bonaparte. And I would like to say that I have the same sympathy for him as I do for Macron. They're exactly the same crap to me. And I say it plainly. About Macron, really, I don't know when the French, Zoe, are going to get rid of him. He doesn't do anything right. Every time I see Macron, it's just nonsense. The other day in Turkey, there he was pretending to go jogging around the city with I don't know how many bodyguards. It's like you said about patriotism. Yes, nation, no. Frankly, I don't understand how France can have this president.
National priority went down the drain. And because there's a plan, an invasion plan that favors these kinds of people who, knowing they don't have the support of a nation, the patriotic support of a nation, well, he hides and seeks refuge and power in what he has allowed to invade the country he's in. That's how it is. It's a tourniquet. It's a tourniquet and a grinder that's grinding down the country. And the ones who are surviving are the ones in charge of the crank of the grinder. That's how it is. That's how nations and countries and everything are destroyed. And that's where Spain is headed. Spain is going there if it doesn't free itself from these delusions. I hope that in 27, well, we get rid of this clown, because this is a total clown.
I hope so.
Now, look, I wanted to say something before the show ends. You saw that I was checking my phone. As always, people from Cuba are writing to me, this time to thank you for talking about the hospitals and the children, and to ask that you don't abandon that topic. I'm very sensitive about that. We're very sensitive. The exile community is very sensitive about it because it's inhumane.
We're not going to forget. And I agree with you that we have to put pressure on UNICEF, the UN, everyone to do their job. It's all very difficult.
The only way I can help you, or where I think I can be useful, is by making myself available to film a documentary piece. Immediately, just tell me who I need to contact, who I need to talk to, who I need to interview, who we need to talk to create a quick and effective documentary piece to distribute all over the world, and to put the issue of the hospitals and the Cuban children in the spotlight, the magnificent news. I'm at your disposal. Later, when we finish or so, when we meet, I'll help you get the contacts. I'll call you, or my production manager will call you, and that's how I can help you. Besides, I think it's a magnificent idea. These are the things that are worth fighting for. By the way, and I thank you, Zoe, for being so brave. There are truly brave Cubans. That's what needs to be done. Fight. That's why we have to take a step forward in every way we can and everywhere.
Would they let him into film, Zoe?
In Cuba, probably not.
It would be very complicated, but there are testimonies outside of Cuba. There are images. There's a lot. All of that needs to be compiled. And as he said, that can be done quickly. I appreciate it.
It could be. It's a piece with real social media images. Yes.
Man,
that would be great.
It would be great if they let me, or at least someone in Cuba, record, but I doubt they'll allow any Cuban to do so.
I'm going to put you in touch with people I'm in contact with in Cuba.
Very well.
We won't mention more names to avoid causing them problems. Luego tienen problem. Magnificent idea. Rancaño, I'm already looking forward to seeing it, and you can count on the show for whatever you need. The show's team is at your disposal. Contacts, whatever you need. Well, more about the World Cup. Tony, Bernabe, and Juan.
If I were one of the players, coaches, or technical staff of the national team, if we were to reach and win the World Cup, I wouldn't even show up at Zarzuela or Moncloa.
If Spain wins the World Cup, since soccer has more influence than anything else on the planet nowadays, surely Spain will have to apologize to Mexico for having beaten them in that World Cup that Mexico was hosting. And Spain will also have to apologize to Milei from Argentina for having called him a drug addict.
We are capable of coming together, which is great, to celebrate in the streets with thousands and thousands of people. When Sunday is over, whether we win or not, will we be able to get out just half? I'm only saying half of all those people with sick parents, grandparents, misdiagnosed in healthcare because of the collapse. The situation we have in the country, which is a Bolivarian dictatorship 2.0, are we capable of doing it?
Sanchez is the exact opposite of what the World Cup represents. Sanchez seeks division, wants us to confront each other, polarizes, constantly brings up Franco, he's a dictator. The World Cup brings everyone together, no matter their ideology. And is Sanchez terribly afraid of that unity in the streets? That after the victory and the joy, and when someone hugs another person with different political views, they say, we both have a common enemy, and he's at the Moncloa Palace, and that strength should be directed there. Careful, because the same thing happened to us in the World Cup we won. Things change. The way a lot of people think changes. The bad thing is that it's only for a short, all too brief time. I wish it lasted longer, right? It's almost like a rebound effect.
If we win, it generates some optimism, doesn't it? I think it's fine. I've already told you that it's also a way to contribute to unity so that fellow countrymen can recognize one another. Besides, I think the message that is being sent worldwide is very important. It's a final where Spanish is spoken. It's between Spain and Argentina. You can practically hear Spanish all through the stands in New York City. It's going to be filled with Spanish speakers. We'll celebrate the World Cup in the capital of American business, which is the city with one of the largest Hispanic populations in the world. And that's an example of the strength of what I've always said, that Spain is the most important nation in the history of humanity. And I think the World Cup will also reflect the impact our nation has had throughout history. Let's leave it at that. We'll see later what happens in our country.
And I want to remember someone who is Cuban, who was beloved in Spain and who has died at the age of 90, Jose Legra, this world boxing champion. I've seen some media, dear Zoe, saying that the world champion Jose Legra has died at the age of 90, a very good friend of Franco. They always have to stick their nose where they shouldn't. Legra was fun. He had a good sense of humor. He was incredibly funny. And hey, world boxing champion, which isn't easy. He also loved Spain and his Cuba, which he wasn't allowed to return to, right?
Exactly. Also, I think the one who best summed up this passing of this great athlete, it was Bertrando Endongo, who said on his Instagram page, this man was no longer welcomed in Cuba. They didn't let him enter Cuba anymore, and he was received in Spain. Spain welcomed him. He posted pictures of Jose Legra shaking hands with Franco, but I don't understand why. These journalists don't inform themselves anymore because Fidel Castro and Franco were very good friends. And when Franco died, Cuba declared, and it's in the official press, 3 days of national mourning. I mean, I don't understand the mess these people have in their heads because they don't stay informed. They don't investigate.
So really, I'll stick with your phrase today, Zoe, when you said that since the United States put Fidel Castro in power, now they should take the Castros out because that's the reality. This isn't like Venezuela, right? Here they put the guy in and he's been around for almost 70 years. Let's see if they finally get rid of him once and for all. Let's go to the newsroom. Susana Gasco, latest messages.
Yes, we're here reading a lot of messages and a lot of opinions from all our insiders, and there are more of us every day. Isabel says that unfortunately, the only thing that gets Spaniards moving is football. Salud also says that Sanchez is giving Spain away, but he's giving it away piece by piece. Fernando says that handing over Gibraltar is an absolute disgrace for Spain. There's no end to this government, and it even pats itself on the back. Concha asks, how much did Sanchez get for selling Gibraltar to the English? Ana says that the Spanish royalty has sunk lower every day. It makes me absolutely ashamed. Alfonso says that disqualification from public office should be permanent. In fact, it should be for life because those who commit crimes, if allowed, will do it again. Nancy says, my friend Albert, your show is unmissable from beginning to end. God willing, the Spanish people will wake up and more will rise up and speak out. Lola says Pedro Sanchez shouldn't attend the football game because he's bad luck. Also in this case, Al Uriel says if we were as united as we are in the national team, things would go so well for all of us. And this is the last one. A friend says that when the skip button appears during ads on YouTube, you just skip the ad and sometimes we continue with your show. But it also happens with other channels. But in this case, they don't let you activate it because you have to watch all the government ads, like what happened today with the Ministry of Equality ad. And we'll leave it here for now. We invite all our regular viewers and those who don't usually watch us to check out all our shows through these channels we have, and also through the digital newspaper CastillonConfidential.com. It's interesting to stay well informed. Thank you very much, Alver.
Thank you. So when someone wants to skip the ads here, which of course everyone can do as they wish, it takes you to ads from the government of Spain. I don't accept public money, and yet they're slipping it in on me anyway. Rancaño, we have to do something about this. I'm a bit fed up.
If you let me, besides my offer to Zoe to highlight and give a voice and a platform to all free Cubans to denounce the situation happening in Cuba's hospitals. And with what's happening with the sick and with the children, I would like the insiders not to forget about my documentary that's on YouTube by David Lazo, which is a cry for the survival of the countryside. Spanish, not just the Spanish countryside, but the European countryside of farmers, ranchers, and the people of the sea who go out to work every day and want to keep defending their traditions and their way of life. And for the past, I think it's been 24, 48 hours, I've had it's fake, modest, I don't care. I have a great documentary on Amazon Prime called Leila, in which we feature interviews. We interview patients, family members, so they can tell us what this disease is, and so they can tell us about the behavior of Spanish politicians and leaders toward those people who really need help. Please support me by watching the documentary about Leila. I need you to be aware of the government and the politicians we have, and for my fellow countrymen to be aware of what is truly important. And besides, it's a problem.
On Amazon Prime.
And it's great if they watch it after the soccer match or before.
Yolanda appears. My friend Yolanda doesn't appear.
De Prado. Yolanda, your friend Yolanda appears. A lot more people appear. The caregivers appear. And the documentary is truly exceptional because of the greatness of the characters who appear in the documentary. Sadly, some of them have already passed away, so I thank you for letting me.
Please.
So please.
The one by David Lafosse on YouTube is already surpassing the others. Yes, let's go.
Come on, it's not a good time. You know, it's the YouTube channel of my production company. It's not a YouTube channel like yours as an influencer, but it keeps growing every day. Don't worry, we'll get there. And besides, we have a series of important actions planned now. Because I'm telling you, it's amazing. You can't even imagine the amount of nice things people say to me. Farmers, ranchers, and people who work at sea. I was just telling my family the other day, I said we're going to have to get in the car and start going from town to town. Finally, they're going to welcome us wonderfully.
I'm very happy. Hey, just so you know, your documentary about David Lafosse on YouTube has been seen by more people than any of the movies he subsidized.
I have no doubt about that, just like I have no doubt that we're going to make a piece that the whole world will see, talking about the tragedy of Cuba and the criminals who have allowed this tragedy to happen.
Zoe, we're counting on that and your help.
Absolutely, you can count on that. As soon as I finish, we'll exchange information.
Are you still in? I should mention that Zoe Valdez has been in Miami for months. She's still there. And every time I call her, she says, I've changed my plane tickets again to return to Paris, which is where you usually live. But do you still hold out hope that one of these mornings they'll tell you, today is the day, let's go, it's over, and we have to push to make it happen? I see that hope in your eyes more and more each time. I call you and you're still there in the United States. Zoe, let's see if we can make it happen soon. A big kiss.
Besides, Zoe, for me personally, for Jose Luis Rancaño, it's an honor to share space with a true intellectual like you, Zoe.
Honor is very important.
Committed to freedom, not like others who call themselves intellectuals.
Honor, and by the way, something you'll never see on Spanish television under this regime. A hug, dear, a big hug.
It's a great honor. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Zoe Valdez, friends, Jose Luis Rancaño, a hug. Film producer, get ready because today is Heroes Day and Paco Alvarez is ready in a minute.
You're listening to Castillon Confidential.
The price of gold is hitting record highs. Those pieces of jewelry you no longer wear could solve many of your financial problems. But how can you trust where to go? Javier Peño is discreet and has been buying jewelry, diamonds, gold, and top watch brands like Cartier from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s for 36 years. And he always offers the highest appraisal. He has 6 stores in Cadiz and the main one is in Madrid at 7 Arenal Street. Don't get confused because number 7 brings good luck. On the 2nd floor, right next to Puerta del Sol, they don't close at midday. No one is going to pay you more. If you want to talk to Javier, call him on our behalf at 91 593 0491 593-91 593-04-91, completely trustworthy.
Gentlemen, the anonymous heroes, to a large extent, many of them are featured here on the show. We search, we dig deep to find figures in history that we should feel proud of. And they are forgotten not by us, but in the history books and in terms of national or international recognition. Today, imagine, Paco Alvarez brings me a conquistador among other places from Timbuktu, who was born in Almeria, that's right. My dear Paco Alvarez, historian, how are you?
Well, here I am, delighted to be with you and with all the Confidenciales, talking indeed about a hero who, hey, has a movie, has a series. This man, well, should be very well known because his life is like a fairy tale, right? But unfortunately, we don't know him.
His name is Juder Pasha, but was he really born in Almeria with that name?
No, the truth is that he was born with the name Diego de Guevara in Cuevas de Almanzora, a small village in Almeria. But in the 16th century, shortly after he was born as a child, he was taken as a slave by Barbary pirates, along with 300 other people, and taken to Africa to be sold as a slave. Since he was a child, the first thing they did with children was to castrate them so they would become a different kind of slave, right? It was a terrible time. It seems that he was born, by the way, in 1562. It was a complicated time. But anyway, despite having been a slave and having been castrated, he, let's say, grew up in the court of the Sultan of Marrakesh. He rose in every way until he became the general of the Sultan's troops. And he fought in the famous Battle of Alcazar-Quivir in 1578, the Battle of the Three Kings, in which Sebastian of Portugal, Abu Abdallah al-Manzur, and the then Sultan of Marrakech, whose name was Abd al-Malik, died, if I'm not mistaken. So, from there, the new Sultan said, well, I have to expand my territory, but of course, on one side, I have the ocean, on the other side, the desert, and to the north, I have the Spanish and the Portuguese. So what do I do? Why don't I go south? But of course, to the south, there was also desert. But he entrusted this man, who was then already called Yudar Pasha. He was Muslim. Obviously, he had already spent his whole life there since he was a child. He ordered him to organize an army to conquer the Songhai Empire, which was the empire that then ruled what is now Mali, right? And, he formed an army with Spanish Moriscos, with Spaniards who were imprisoned after the Battle of Alcazar-Quivir, Andalusians, mostly Spaniards. Well, he hired 500 English archers, but they didn't last long because of the heat. But anyway, the point is that he said, well, I'm going to Mali. And it took him 135 days to cross the Sahara Desert with the army. An absolute madness.
What an incredible story this man has, who, from what you're saying, erased his Spanish origin and embraced the one who had kidnapped him, right? Was it like that?
Well, he erased his Christian origin, but of course you have to understand, what can a child do, right? I mean, he erased his Christian origin, but he never forgot that he was Spanish. He actually spoke in Spanish, and in fact, he went to the prison and said, I want all these veteran arquebusiers, get them out for me, they're coming to my army. And they went with him to Mali and won the Battle of Tondibi in 1590, which according to Ortega y Gasset, who actually knew Juder Pacha, was the southernmost battle ever won by an army, further south in Africa than any battle ever won by a Spanish army, because the army was Spanish. So, yes, they did conquer Mali, they stayed there, and they loved Timbuktu. By the way, in Timbuktu, the mosque there, which is a World Heritage Site, was built by Sajali or Sahali, who was an architect from Guadix, Granada, an Andalusian architect. And also the library of Timbuktu houses, or used to house, I think now it's being digitized here in Spain, all the books that had fled the Cati library from Toledo from the 15th century, So they arrived there and saw that there were a lot of Andalusian books in the library, and they said, well, what is this? What is this? And we stayed in Mali just like we stayed everywhere else. One of the conquerors of Mali said, after being there for 10 years, all our children are black. And it's true, indeed.
Of course, but that means it's possible that even today in Mali, there's Spanish DNA, right? Yes.
Absolutely. There's an ethnic group that calls themselves the Arma like firearm, and they consider themselves, and they are descendants of Spaniards. In fact, they still use some words in Spanish, like alfombra, I don't know, words like that, a lot of Andalusian words that they still use in Spanish. And it's one of the major ethnic groups in Mali, the Arma, descendants of Spaniards. They consider themselves descendants of Yudar Pacha, but obviously they can't be descendants of Yudar Pacha. But, yes, from others, from other conquerors.
Well, Don Diego de Guevara, who went down in history as Yudar Pacha, I understand that being a Muslim, he won't have any recognition or monuments here, right? In Spain.
No, not really. Unfortunately not. Well, he was later in 1598 called back to Marrakesh because the Sultan said, let's see if this guy is going to become independent here in Mali. And he went to Fez, where he passed away, by the way, in 1605, which is the year Don Quixote was published. So we're talking about a magical time. But look at the life of this man, right? In the end, his monuments are the Arma, right? His monuments are the descendants of Spaniards who remain in Mali, and at least 20,000 natives consider themselves descendants of his army. That is his monument.
20,000 native descendants with Spanish DNA, mostly descended from people from Almeria in Mali. If you travel there as a tourist, look for the Arma because we have a lot in common. They're family, distant, but still family.
That's right.
Very distant. You're right. Juder Pacha's story would make an incredible movie. Let's see if we do it, maybe with a film director we like. Dear Paco, a hug. Thank you very much. I follow you on your channel.
See you later, friends.
I really like that you don't forget history, nor the deaths caused by ETA. Luis does it.
Yesterday, July 14th. 40 years ago, ETA carried out a terrorist attack in Plaza República Dominicana in Madrid, in which 12 civil guard officers were murdered. The only news I watch at noon is on Antenna 3. I don't watch any others. And I am truly outraged that they didn't even make a single comment.
Well, you're right. We must never forget. And people on social media have on Twitter, on Instagram, but the mainstream media are just focused on their own agenda. And it's very good that we don't forget. Of course, if they're government partners and receive government subsidies, they don't want to get a call saying, take that off, right? Take that off. That's how they are. That's how they are. Friends, stay strong and thanks for being there. There's a message from Tony with lots of encouragement. Go ahead.
Years ago, when I started listening to you on this channel, I always told you that it felt too short. But it's true that you've gradually gotten us used to a longer show. An hour and a half, an hour 45. And that's really appreciated.
Thank you very much, my friend. We're here to try to keep improving. And we change this almost every month. Memes, Miguel sends me something. He says the grandchildren law. You see a bunch of aliens with a flying saucer that says, we vote for PSOE, and Sanchez gives them citizenship. In exchange for your vote, whatever you need, we'll end up like this. Well, if we're not already. And another one that Amparo sent me, where Sanchez covers the mouths of the lions at Congress with a handkerchief bearing the PSOE emblem. A picture is worth 1,000 words. I really like it. Well, and Freud Lannister. Yolanda Diaz is the main character. Listen.
Hello, everyone. Today I bring you excellent news. It turns out that we have more and more precarious jobs in Spain and workers who can't make a living with their salaries, which must be great news. Because Unai Sordo and Pepe Alvarez have assured me of this while I was sending millions of euros to their unions and tons of seafood. And since I'm not very bright, I believe it. I'll just say we've got a corrupt government for a long time yet.
Exactly like that. 33 million euros. But that's only what UGT and workers' commissions get from the central government. I'm sorry, but then Juanma Moreno gives them money. Ayuso gives them money. Yes, they also get money from a lot of autonomous communities. What for? So they don't call strikes in their communities or in their municipalities. They're like a mafia where if you don't pay, they go out on the streets and protest against you. If you pay, they stay quiet. What I'm saying is harsh, but that's what unions have become in Spain. Well, you won't see this on Spanish television, nor will you see this GAC that a confidential source sends me.
I don't know. This has happened to us too. I cleaned the TV with disinfectant gel and channel 1 disappeared.
Try it. Clean the TV with disinfectant gel and you'll see how channel 1 disappears, La Sexta, sometimes the news on channel 4, well, and many more, even some channels I've worked for. Well, Fernando Francisco SPD, thank you very much for your donation, because without you here, we can't keep going. And I have 2 stories that I love. One was sent to me by Merche. It's a video that I think you all will relate to. I related to it with how life goes wherever it wants, and so does the administration without considering the elderly.
They took away the service window. They gave you an app. And if you don't know how to use it, you're the one who's clumsy. Nonsense, you're not clumsy. They changed the rules without explaining them. Banking on your phone, online medical appointments, expiring codes, QR codes on the table, paperwork with certificates, and there you are, trying not to get stuck. That's where the trap is. They took away people, put up screens, took away patience, and replaced it with a rush. And on top of that, they look at you weird if you ask twice. Go ahead, it's easy. But if it doesn't have anything, you do it from the app. Of course, it's easy for those who were born with their finger on the screen. It's not hard to learn. What's hard is that everyone assumes you should already know, as if asking for help was a bother. Look at the phone, go back, lose the password, another code arrives, time runs out, take a deep breath and try again. So no, honey, you're not clumsy. They left you alone in a world that changed too fast. And even so, you keep trying to learn. That's not being behind. That's something to be proud of. If they made you feel clumsy too, comment me too.
It happens to me too. It happens to me too. Yesterday, I was at a bank branch and a very angry man was next to me complaining because they called him from that bank to offer him insurance. He said he wasn't interested, and a few hours later, they had charged him for the insurance. Instead of the woman helping him, saying to him, "Don't worry, I'll fix it for you. You're right. We'll change it for you. But go to the app and do it there. It's easier." And she went to have a coffee. Something has been lost, right? This is empathy, humanity, call it whatever you want. It's not wanting to take care of your own because they're no longer your own. Well, perhaps the biggest proof is that in banks, everyone, in savings banks too, they change people from branch to branch. For what? So they don't become friends with the customers. So they don't build trust. I mean, they're looking for enemies, they're looking for machines, and wherever they can, they'll replace humans with automatic machines that will be even colder than ice. What a way to make money off of us. They charge us fees even for breathing, and on top of that, they want distance and mistreatment. They like that. Well, I don't want to end like this. It's Friday. Let's finish with Abraham Gomez, who has done another brilliant thing and posted it on his YouTube channel. Don't miss it.
How are you doing? I'd be lying if I told you that I'm worried about Pedri again. He's always on my mind. It's like when you get kidnapped, you know? You don't like being kidnapped, but there's an attraction there, you know? I think I have this is too much syndrome. With Pedri, Spain has this is too much syndrome because we're with him, we love him so much. Oh, Pedri Chavez, so many memories, and I'm worried because now he's tried to take some extraordinary measures against climate change that nobody understands. The first thing he did was he and two ministers each took a different plane at the same time to NATO. That measure, I'm telling you, nobody would have thought of it, really, nobody, you know? But he did it. And then he said, and from here I'm going to go alone on a plane that's twice as big, an Airbus with 180 seats or so, to my daughter's graduation in the United Kingdom. Because when he found out about the fires that were happening right now in Spain, he said, "Ugh, urgent, I have to go to the United Kingdom, I'll stay until Sunday." He went there on a plane twice as big. People are complaining, asking, but how is he supposed to fly? It's not because of him, it's the nose. It's the nose. It's just that it wouldn't fit. I mean, he tried to squeeze it in sideways so many times. He tried to squeeze it in sideways in the Falcon, in the car, you know. He tried to pull a fast one on us, but he can't pull it off. He requested a more comfortable ride, so they gave him the longer Airbus. And he breathed. And in Spain, we all breathed, and so did the planet. That's it.
All confidential.
About Pinocchio's nose, since it wouldn't fit in your mouth, you had to take the Airbus for it to get in. You guys were hilarious. Well, Abraham Gomez, don't miss his videos. Friends, the weekend is coming. I'm sure we'll show up here at some point. Lately, it's become a rule to post some breaking news on Saturday or Sunday. Someday they'll let us rest. I want to watch the final on Sunday and for us to win. and win the World Cup. Let's see if we can do it. Thank you for being there. A big hug to everyone. Take care.
Confidential. I am confidential. All confidential. All confidential. But only for open minds and for people who are aware. From the trench, the bullets whistle, and there's no way to get out there. Here, freedom has wings of wax. When I see that it's me, Susanna Gash, your girl is myself and me, and more. Thank you very much. Thanks. Chua la 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 que. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Stiva dureridi, scatta mamacita di du, skitskadeli du, badadeli du, con esto. Thank you. Yana hala socho.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.